All right, call the meeting to order. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask for a moment of silence now, please. All righty. I want to welcome everybody to the meeting. We'll start off with roll call. Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Culberson.
Here.
Smith here.
Here.
And Mike here. Welcome. Again, welcome everybody. First thing on the agenda is public comment. I see we have a couple folks here wanting to speak. Stephanie Ventura. Stephanie here? You want to check real quick, Jim?
That's not a call.
Well, it's what?
Could be a call. Not a call.
Okay.
He says it's a call.
Yeah, I know. She told me they were going to be here.
She's on her way. Mrs. Miles is here actually.
All right.
Skip to her.
Okay. We'll go ahead as Ms. Crystal Miles here. Yes, ma'am. If you'd come forward and we have our policies 3 minutes. So if you would begin whenever you're ready. Thank you for coming out.
I'm worried you're not going to hear me, so I did bring a hard copy.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, good morning. We're here today to state opposition for the rural zoning of rural residential 5 acres to the 2.5 acre rural residential for 9A and 9B Deer Mound subdivision. President Franklin Roosevelt once said, "A nation that destroys its soils destroys itself." The proposed 2.5 acre development on this 110 acre property will destroy valuable Kansas cow-bottom agricultural soils forever. We believe the application does not meet the county comprehensive goals to protect valuable agricultural soils. Although we appreciate new property owners to our community, this is not a simple land transaction, but it's a major transformation of appearance, condition, and function to a remote and isolated part of the county with poor road access. Our concerns and oppositions are for many reasons. Mainly the loss of productive agricultural soils, the added density. This county has already allowed 5 acre rule, which has resulted in lot size of 20 acres. This is 10 times that density for that area. And it would not support the initiative to build strong soils by adding 35 plus more septic systems, stormwater runoff, and building roads. The area is remote, landlocked property, and the proposed development is much too high for the density of the surrounding community and the roads. The traffic overload for an estimated 200 to 500 vehicles a day would be a major negative impact on everyday life of our farm and our general community. Stillwell Road would be the main access to this property and 246th Street. They're both substandard, vastly undeveloped, deep shoulders, deep ditches, hilly terrain, poor drainage. In snow times, the road below shut. There's no ambulance can get through, and it's kind of a mess. And that's with the 15 existing homes that are there now. The situation is already fragile, resulting in a traffic mix of homeowners, grain trucks, kids on their bikes, school buses, horse trailers, all kinds of things trying to share this one road. The school bus tipped over trying to get over to let a car pass. The grain truck tipped over trying to get, and I'm sorry, I ran up the stairs and I'm still out of breath. This is a cautious but difficult mix of activity, and adding more significant traffic is ill-advised. The area to the south to get out, besides Stillwell Road, is 4 miles of hillbilly goat hills before you get to the highway. It's just a road never traveled. So we believe this is a huge traffic concern. Additionally, the triangular intersection at Stillwell Road and County Road 27 is a very dangerous blind triangular intersection with high-speed traffic from both directions. You get a chance of getting T-boned or rear-ended when you're trying to turn left onto Stillwell. Again, adding 200 to 500 more vehicles to this intersection daily is very dangerous.
Okay.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming out with the comments. Thank you, Mrs. Miles. Is Stephanie Ventura in the audience now? Stephanie, ma'am, would you come on up and according to our policy, you have 3 minutes, and whenever you want to start, go right ahead. Welcome.
My name is Stephanie Ventura. I live at 24655 Conley Avenue. The property across the road from us is the one being proposed to go from 5 acres. It's supposed to be, I guess, to 2.5, but the property is only 4.1, so that's there. And I don't know how you split 4.1 into 2.5 acre lots. I'm also the one that got all of the signatures for the petition against this rezoning. I think I got 60 people that I keep. Some were out of town, but everybody, all the neighbors that I've talked to do not want this rezoning. My house is also the one, so there's hills all around us, Rocky Sea, and so we're kind of low in a valley, and my property has a big giant flood reserve because I've been told that all of that land has been underwater completely before, and that sometimes when it rains on 246th Street, right at the back of my property, it floods there. There's a little creek, and it floods there across the road. So I think that's about all I wanted to say, other than I got probably 90% signatures against it in my area.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving on, right? Administrative business.
Just one thing to bring up. In the past, we've talked about inserting something into the tax bills when they go out. The commission has discussed that. Those bills will be going out the first part of March, so we have a very small window if there was something that the board wanted to insert in there. Just wanted to bring that up so we didn't completely miss that.
We sent the letter out for addresses on properties. Since it wouldn't cost us anything, maybe we should stick another copy of that in there, I think, because I've noticed.
On that one, we sent it, I think, directly to the people who were impacted by it. This one goes to everyone in the county, so you have,
I don't know if there'd be a way to
80% of the people who got it, it wouldn't even apply to.
Yeah, so we can't really separate out the rural ones from the city ones, can we?
When we do it internally, we were able to do it, but
okay, it helped a lot. I noticed a lot of new addresses popping up, but there's still a lot that didn't. So I'd figure that out.
well, if I think in the past what was discussed was something explaining how property tax are calculated. if we wanted to do something like that, I could work with the appraiser and
Like
get that done.
big
but I
bold
just-
letters break out the school district's portion and the county's portion.
Well, it would probably, people might be surprised by that, maybe not. But, there's obviously some talk at the state level about changing notification procedures, which are going to, if implemented, is going to cost the counties likely significant amounts of money, and the cities as well, but they exempted themselves and school districts from that. So,
Right, and I'm sure the rest of the commissioners I'm sure the school districts don't get as many calls as the county commissioners get when it comes to property tax.
Yeah. All right. Fair statement.
that's all I had for administrative business.
I did have a question. I was visiting with Commissioner Culberson about the executive order dealing with private prisons. Can we do a little more research into that, and if that turns out that that's going to impact our community, that we would draft a letter to our elected representatives in the Congress on this issue?
Yeah, I think that the executive order you're referencing issued here in the last couple of weeks actually is to do away with private prisons and make them all federally controlled, which we do have a private prison in the county. And
Yeah, our biggest taxpayer in Leavenworth County is our private prison. And that would be a huge impact. They pay almost $1 million a year in taxes to Leavenworth County.
Very true.
So if we were to lose that, that's a big deal.
I'd say we need a letter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
And some of these decisions that are being made at the swoop of a pen are very impactful.
Yeah, I don't know I guess I don't know if they're enforceable the way it's written as an executive order, but I think, that's direction given to the Department of Corrections at the federal level, so I think they control those contracts, so it probably is
I agree.
binding
Yeah.
what he's doing. So, yeah, certainly.
And I noticed, Mark, they weren't concerned in the beginning, but then yesterday, a couple days later, CCA said they are now very concerned about that. I think that's an excellent idea, Mike.
Yeah, I think what the executive order stated was no new contracts for private prisons, and none of the current contracts, when they expire, would be renewed. So that would be very impactful.
Okay.
And just as a side note, as a union worker, I can tell you that executive orders so far have cost union workers over 15,000 jobs. And that's, to me, that's a disgrace.
All righty. Any more on administrative business? Okay, we'll go to a consent agenda. Anything need to be taken off?
I have nothing.
Okay. Get a motion then.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is second. Any more discussion on it? Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Smith? Aye. Aye. Passes. Formal board action. Okay. This is where Mark takes over. David?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, good morning. This is David Van Paris, County Councilor. Commissioners, I brought before you a proposed agreement between the City of Basel developer, party of developers, and the county regarding town center property in the City of Basel. This agreement is the result of approximately 5 years of litigation regarding the special assessment put on that property by the City of Basel. It came before the county because the special assessment was made part of the 2016 tax foreclosure action filed by the county. Without going into the history of this matter, which is, from my perspective, somewhat interesting, I would tell you that the agreement calls for all of the ad valorem taxes to be paid with respect to this. In essence, the city and the developer have reached an agreement that satisfies the city with respect to their special assessment on the property, satisfies the developer as to their obligation with respect to that. and quite frankly, frees that property up for potential future development. I have spoken with the attorney for the city of Basel who crafted this. I've had it reviewed by Mr. Roger Mars. It is my recommendation that you authorize the chairman to sign this agreement so this matter can be, for want of a better phrase, given a benevolent death.
Thank you, David.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion on it? Mr. Collins?
Aye.
Mr. Robertson? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, David.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'll prepare a signature copy for the chairman.
Thought I'd never see the day that this ended.
Yeah, it does have a history, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
All righty. Next one's Bill.
Commissioners, today for your consideration we have the acceptance of the Watershed Institute grant for the replacement of K45, the bridge structure, and also the replacement of K56, a culvert on Millwood Road. This structure, the bridge structure specifically, had previously been rated for 22 tons by our bridge inspection team. It was contracted previously by the county. GBA, completed an audit of the load ratings of a certain percentage of the bridges. This is an annual inspection completed by the state. During that inspection, they reduced the capacity of that bridge to 3 tons.
Unbelievable.
Which is obviously a very substantial reduction. It resulted in the bridge not being able to be utilized by school buses or other large agricultural traffic in the area, or generally anything more than a passenger vehicle. So the grant that is available that we have applied for and successfully received is a 50-50 cost share grant. It is a privately funded grant opportunity that is not through any state agency or any public, is not public funds. They are private funds that we have applied for. It would replace the existing structure with a simple steel truss bridge. It would require the topography of the flow line of the creek to be measured in order to ensure the upstream mobility of aquatic species. What we need is the acceptance of the grant and the placement of this into the capital improvement plan. Currently, the funds are available within the township funds for the Kickapoo Township, so that financially this is a feasible project for the county. The culvert that is being replaced is 114 inches, which is a substantially large culvert. It needs to be lowered. It would need to be placed into the ground at a depth of about 10 inches to ensure that the stream is available to be used for upstream aquatic species. So what we would do for a structure like this, which I have previously experienced with the Watershed Institute, is we have to enter into an MOU that states more or less that the county will not replace this bridge structure with another structure that has a concrete bottom to it. The current structure is an arch culvert with a concrete floor that does not allow the continuous flow of water during low water at times when there is dry out. And so basically it ensures that there'll be a single span structure that is over this bridge in the future. That is not, I don't see that as an issue, as well as the location of the culvert, which is also not an issue. We don't want our culverts being above the flow line anyway. Over time, the flow line will erode and be lowered at that location, just like many other locations near the river, but that takes a number of decades. What Public Works would do is we would solicit for a design build package where we would get all the phases of the project completed as a turnkey solution. And so there would be a bid proposal placed on Drexel, where we would ask for the design, materials, and installation of the structures. There are several contractors out there who do complete all three phases. In conjunction with that, the riprap and placement of materials around the bridge structure is designed by the Watershed Institute free of cost. And so in conjunction with the two aspects, we would cover all engineering fees. They would not be separate. There would be no separate design cost for the structure. The anticipated cost of the bridge, we previously received a design build installation bid of $165,000, but that bid's approximately 90 days old, and we've been informed that steel prices have increased by approximately 7%, so it would be slightly higher than that. So in total, this project is approximately $200,000, of which approximately $100,000 of it would be covered with the 50/50 grants. If you guys have any questions, I'll try to answer those.
Chairman, I got a question.
Go ahead.
So, how many bridges were audited through KDOT after our inspection?
Approximately 15, I believe.
15, and this is the only one that was...
No, their load ratings changed on several, but this is the only one that was a 19-ton reduction.
Unbelievable. I mean, that just
Makes you feel safe going across the bridge, don't it?
22 to 3, Bill.
And we just had it inspected.
Yes, Benish inspected it in 2018.
Who inspected it?
Benish inspected it in 2018.
That's how you got a new bridge.
Benish inspected it in 2018. In 2019, GBA audited 10% of the county's bridges, which is, I believe, 15 bridges. And this was the only one that was load rating reduction to a manner that couldn't handle general traffic or school buses. The detour at this location is 7.5 miles of gravel, and so it is a very significant detour, which the property owners will have to endure during the duration of the project. These projects don't last a really long time. In conjunction with that, the Millwood Road is a dead-end road at that location, and so we do have some houses off the end of that road, so we'd have to coordinate the replacement of that large culvert with the landowners. So there are some planning and coordination efforts that need to take place, but if the bridge is 3 tons, its useful lifespan is come to a conclusion.
Anything else, Commissioner?
Only question.
Need a motion on this?
You ready for a motion?
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
I move that we accept the Missouri River Watershed Grant to replace K45 Bridge Culvert on 187th Street and K56 Culvert on Millwood Road.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on this? Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
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 Motion passed.
We have all the bridges replaced up there.
Pretty soon.
Well, definitely that one. Oh, my goodness. Okay. The next on board
2 a
is...
year, I guess.
Yeah, I know. Crystal?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Morning.
All right, the first item I have before you is a request to remand case number DEV 20-183 back to the Planning Commission. This is a request for an additional event barn on a piece of property that already has an existing event barn. When the applicant had originally submitted their narrative and their request, with 128. Did I say 183? Yes, you did. I don't know where that came from. It's 128. Sorry, Commissioners. The original request came through. Staff was able to process that. Staff sent it out to the appropriate agencies. They were all able to process it. However, at the Planning Commission meeting, the applicant made a very substantial change in request that would allow up to 1,000 people at these events. They wanted to be able to use each event center to maximum capacity. Staff's opinion at that time was that this needed to go back to the Public Works Department and to Olson for additional review because this was a substantial change. The Planning Commission recommended to approve it as was originally presented and then to let the Board of County Commissioners decide either to remand it back to Planning Commission if they wanted to evaluate whether or not they would like to have that large of an increase. So with that, I will, our recommendation certainly is that this
Go
goes
ahead.
back to Planning Commission.
Crystal, now, this event center did pay for the upgrade of the road, correct, last summer?
Yes.
So they did already upgrade to hard surface to this event center.
Yeah, and so dust is not really the issue. The issue is if we have between 500 and 750 vehicles trying to come to this place at any, like within an hour or 2 hour time period, and we safely get that many vehicles in and out of there, that's the real issue. It's not the dust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's no houses on the first mile going there. They're all as you get to 211th Street.
All along
There's
the-
no houses along this.
So you get to the event center, which
His original special use permit said he did not have to upgrade the road. This person did it on his own to do this because, there were some weather issues on some of the events that I had even attended, and the road was pretty bad. So he's got a nice road going to it now. I don't know.
But the planning commission has taken that action. They took the one on the original,
correct.
not the one
original-
before they doubled the size.
Yes.
Okay.
So if it went back to you, you would do more review on the road impact?
Yes, we would ask for substantially more information from the applicant. We've worked with the applicant back and forth over the last couple of weeks and just came to the decision between my department and Public Works Department that really this was going to require quite a bit more study if we're looking at having this large of an event center, or 2 event centers that can potentially have 2 very large events.
So, well, I guess I'll move that we remand this back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the continued study of the road.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Motion a second. Any discussion on this?
So,
Go ahead, Doug.
luckily, there's no bridges on this that have been inspected. There is a pretty large drainage structure on one area, though. It's just a large culvert. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioners, anything else? Okay, we got a motion and a second, correct? Mr. Coogan?
Aye.
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 Guys, all right. Head back to Planning Commission.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Crystal. Okay, you're up again.
Yeah, we've got a lot to discuss today.
Yeah.
Commissioners, I have before you an approval request for Resolution 2021-2. This is a request for the renewal of the special use permit for M&M Concrete. M&M Concrete is a seasonal business and primarily takes place between April and December. The property is used to store the business truck, trailer, equipment, and materials during off hours and in the off season. Obviously, actual construction does not take place at the property. It's used as an area for some storage and for the employees to come pick up equipment and head out to the job site for the day. Again, this is a renewal request. We have not had any issues with this, and staff has recommended, and the Planning Commission has also recommended approval for 10 years on this. The applicant is here and will answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Looks pretty clear to me. Any questions, Commissioners? Okay.
Well, I was here when the first one came.
Okay.
I was in the audience, I believe.
Okay. Get a motion?
Commissioner Culberson did.
I make a motion that we approve Resolution 2021-2, renewal of special use permit for M&M Concrete.
I'll second that.
10 years, do I have to add 10 years, or is it
That's
on?
all.
It's already in there.
Okay.
I'll second your motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any more comments, Commissioners? Okay, Commissioner Collins?
Aye.
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 Passes, okay. All right, Crystal.
Right. Commissioners, I have before you a request to approve Resolution 2021-03. This is a request to rezone the property located at 24646 Conley Avenue, also known as Lot 1 of Kane Estates, from rural residential 5 to rural residential 2.5. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this with a 9-0 vote. This does meet the comprehensive plan. It is important to note that a valid protest petition was filed with this, As such, according to Kansas state statute, whenever a valid protest petition is filed, the resolution adopting the rezoning shall not be passed except by at least a 3/4 vote of all members of the governing body, which would of course mean a 4-to-1 vote at a minimum. I will answer any questions that you have. The applicant is also here.
Okay, this is
I have a question. Can you address the current requirements on retention ponds in a subdivision, if we have retention ponds, and secondarily to that is we allow lot splits, one lot split, but if that lot split, let's say it goes from 8 houses to 16 houses due to lot splits, and that impacts the drainage, in our current regulations, is there anything that we would be able, these lot splits are completely, basically unregulated in an impact on drainage and hydrology. Comment on that, and then comment on if we could have a policy change that if a plat subdivision was going to be, if a lot splits were going to occur in a subdivision, could we have a requirement that if your department felt that there was a need to have hydrology or drainage research, that could be required?
Okay, so there's a lot in there. So the first part of that is drainage on private property. If there's a drainage easement or a detention on private property, that is a private property issue. It is not a county issue, and I will certainly let Mr. Van Peer speak more to that if he chooses to do so. We do have plats throughout the county where there have been areas that have been identified as drainage easements and detention areas. The only thing that staff does to ensure that that's not being impacted is we don't allow building within that area. However, it is up to the property owner to maintain that drainage easement or that pond unless there's a homeowners association or something that has taken over maintenance of that. That is not the case, and I would say probably 99% of all subdivisions in Leavenworth County. So if there's a drainage issue, that is a private issue between property owners. It's not an issue for the county to become involved in. Secondarily, our regulations do allow for lot splits. If a plat or if a lot has been platted, it is entitled to a lot split, assuming it can meet the zoning district criteria. That does not require a drainage study. Once you start to get into a drainage study, you go from a simple survey to something much more complicated, and you get much closer to replatting process. Part of the purpose of the lot split is to allow property owners to divide their property with ease. The third part of your question was whether or not staff would discretionarily require hydrology/drainage studies. I don't think so. I think that if that's something that the board wanted to make a policy, then it needs to be across the board. I don't think that staff should be put in a position of making that decision, because until you actually have the information in front of you, you don't know what you're making the decision on. So by default, staff would always require it.
So if you have a platted subdivision and then we rezone from, say, R5 to R2.5, and now we're letting these folks split their lots, which they have the right to do, potentially, under current policy, potentially we could create in a platted subdivision that did require a retention pond, we could potentially create a drainage issue that we intended to control with a retention pond when it was initially platted, but we're not exercising that control because they would have the right to split their properties.
Well, I think it's important to note that first of all, while the lot split is allowed, it doesn't necessarily, it's only allowed if they can meet the zoning district requirements. So, for instance, in this scenario, in this subdivision, by and large, lots would have to have a minimum of 500 feet of road frontage in order to be able to rezone their property to 2.5 acres. That's not the case in almost every single one of these. This particular lot has double road frontage. That's the only reason that it's able to be rezoned and ultimately a lot split accomplished on this. Primarily, if you have a platted subdivision, those lots are going to meet the bare minimum requirements. So if it's 5 acre zoning, you're going to have 300 feet of road frontage and 5 acres exactly, which is what most of these have. So again, going back and trying to rezone that to be able to split it is most of the time not going to be an option. Secondarily, if somebody was trying to do a lot split on a parcel that had a drainage or a detention pond and they wanted to split that detention pond, staff would most likely deny that request, primarily because we don't like to see detention ponds being split by property owners because it creates a maintenance issue about whose responsibility is what. I have had many arguments with a particular surveyor about this exact thing. So we try to find a solution whenever we can to keep the pond or the drainage easement or the drainage area on one parcel in order to keep it under ownership.
Now, this particular subdivision has a detention pond.
On the plat, yes.
And I think the two things I looked at, the same thing you're talking about, Mike, because I was kind of concerned that we were creating a Pandora's box with this, maybe. The two important things I think to look at is the shape of the topography is one thing of the land, the way it drains naturally. I think the thing I was worried about was creating a drainage problem on the neighbor's property. When you get in an impervious surface is what you're really talking about. So these aren't going to be splits that are pouring major parking lots or sidewalks or creating a lot of impervious surface. Really, the only impervious surface you're talking about is the footprint of the house. And so 2,000 square feet, I don't think it's going to cause a major flood problem on the downhill lot. So that's one thing. And then I think also the other thing, like she mentioned, is the road frontage is going to kind of take care of the issue anyway. Because like she said, most of the lots don't have enough road frontage to create this big problem. Being a corner lot or with double footage, you're going to get a few of them, but I think it's more farther and few between than I think. Originally, just like you, I was thinking, are we starting a big problem? But I don't think it's going to be.
I just was wondering about that, like maybe not in this specific instance, but down the road, because we've approved our land use plan is calling for a lot of 2.5. So should drainage be something that we should incorporate into our policies for lot splits, or somehow address that?
Crystal, you're going to do a 2.5 lot split off of 10-acre tract, you're not going to have any hydraulic issues. And it's all addressed during the platting process.
Well, that's true, but we don't have any control over the lot split itself.
I have a quick question. How often can you split a lot? Like how many times can you split
One
it?
time.
One time. So if I had a 20-acre tract and I split it once, then that one could be split again, the 10 that was left?
Then it would have to go to the plat.
That's what I wanted to get to. So you can't go in and do a subdivision with lot splits.
Yeah.
So it's not drainage. Yeah, you can't go from one 25-acre tract to 10 2.5-acre tracts using lot splits. You'd have to plat it, which would require a drainage plan.
I mean, some special use permits even call for drainage.
For drainage, correct.
Yeah. But if, let's say, all the frontage requirements and all the other things you talked about in this subdivision were met, potentially you could go from, let's say you had 8 houses, they could lot split and potentially now have 16.
In a perfect scenario,
Right.
where homes had all been built in the right part of the lot and they all had plenty of road frontage and they were all 5 acres or more and their septic systems were not in the middle of the parcel, and in a perfect scenario, and I cannot emphasize that enough, how perfect that would have to be and how unlikely it is, then yes, theoretically you could go from 8 to 16.
And that's the part I was thinking about. If that was possible, then really all you're talking about is the impervious surface causing the problem. And the only impervious surface you're creating is the footprint of the house. So it's not a whole lot of runoff.
I'm just getting at maybe there should be a policy on this.
I think there already is.
Well, not on a lot split, there's not.
Well, you
I
don't
have
need
some
one on a
level
lot
of
split.
concern, just in general, when
Okay.
you have a formed subdivision, where there are people that are already there who purchased their property, their homes, in a subdivision that was 5-acre lots. And then, to me, to some extent, the developer, whoever, has kind of made a commitment, but this is what you are getting when you are coming into my subdivision. And then, because the county made a decision that says, well, you can do 2.5 now. It's one of those, just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should, because there has been kind of like a covenant, an agreement with the property person who has purchased a property and built a home there, that is what they have as in the subdivision. And that it's just something to think about.
Yeah. Hey, Vicki, I totally get this. Is since coming on here, this is one I've been challenged on, and I saw both sides of. I know exactly what you're saying. This is one that's really kept me up thinking the right of property owner versus the subdivision, plus the new comprehensive plan that was put in place, plus talking to staff. So I share your concerns.
So would this be considered a replat?
Commissioner, no, they would be able to do a lot split.
Okay.
Okay. Any more?
Just one, there was a flood issue raised. Now, there's none of this is in the floodplain.
No, sir.
That's what I thought. I couldn't find it on the floodplain.
But my understanding is 246th Street does have water issues, and the neighbor was and this is a separate issue on the retention pond, that there is erosion across the field neighboring, and that's, of course, what I've discovered in my investigation is that's a private landowner issue between other landowners, but the fact is that water issue does exist.
Okay. I'm going to get a motion. Is there the county commissioners? Any more?
I don't have any more questions.
Okay, Mike, Vicki, anybody? Okay.
If we do, if we would turn this down, then they would not be able to reapply for 1 year. Is that correct?
Okay. And Planning Commission approved this?
They recommended approval.
I know, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Planning Commission approved it?
Yeah. Looking for a motion, one way or the other.
I move to approve Resolution 2020-3, a rezone of property located at 24646 Conley Avenue, R5 to R2.5.
Second.
Motion and second. Commissioners, any more discussion?
I guess the part of it I'm struggling with is the drainage part, and I'm seeing a kind of a hole in our policy. I think we should at least examine the lot split issue within subdivisions.
Right, that's what concerns me is once the subdivision has been developed and the agreements have been made with the people who have purchased the properties, I struggle with that part of it, not the creating new subdivisions with 2.5 versus 5 or whatever, that it's new. I really struggle with the aspect of and opening that can of worms, because nothing stops this from continuing with other subdivisions where the decision has been made to, I've got 5 acres now, I can split it into 2.5 and make profit, where you have negatively impacted the other homeowners who were under the impression that this was not going to be their situation. That's the.
I understand.
I guess I'd really hesitate to delay it for a whole year. I mean, I almost would rather, if we could return it back to the planning and zoning and they could come up with some kind of a proposal for policy dealing with this type of thing, maybe we could not delay it for an entire year.
You're talking delaying it a year by doing that.
Well,
By the time you come up with a
not as,
policy and get it to the board and.
well, I think that could be done probably more expedited than just turning this down.
It sounds like the policy you want us to create would prohibit what they're wanting to do.
Well, certainly what I would say is the drainage issue would be addressed.
And I'd be concerned too, but it does have water detention in the subdivision. I mean, if you go back to when it was platted in early 2000s, probably,
I think so, maybe the late 90s.
something like that, you'd have drainage calcs there.
What percentage of the people who signed the petition were the homeowners who live within the subdivision versus surrounding properties? Do we have that information?
I don't know. Well, hold on one second.
Did have an address.
Yeah, they're there.
So I don't have the percentage. It requires 20% of the total acres, which would be 23.5 acres within the area, and landowners of 60 acres approved it, or signed the petition, excuse me. And each landowner has a different amount of land, so it's hard to know exactly what the percentage is, but they exceeded the protest petition requirement of 20%, pretty substantially.
I mean, what I'm really struggling with is the fact that this landowner, if we approve this, probably not going to be creating a drainage issue in this one case, but if you look at it in the macro sense, there's an issue with the entire subdivision. What makes it a very difficult call.
Well, it goes back to what I was talking about, is what is creating the drainage issue. I don't think one house is doing that. One additional footprint of impervious surface of only 2,000 square feet doesn't make sense that it's causing a problem.
I still go to the issue that I don't think that when the majority of the commission wanted to do the 2.5 versus 5 acre, lots minimums in different areas, I don't think that it was or that in doing that saying, oh, good, I made an agreement with my surrounding neighbors, with my developer, or whoever it was, that I have a 5 acre lot and that's what I have. I mean, that is, and so do my neighbors. But, oh, yippee skippy, the county commission just gave us permission to do this 2.5 versus 5, and I'm going to take advantage of that. And that just bugs me.
One lot's going to access 246, right? And the other lot's going to it could access it in the subdivision.
I think our recommendation would actually be that the existing entrance would continue to be used, and that an access easement would be filed to continue to use that existing entrance in order to.
So you can't get access to 246.
I'm not saying that they can't. If I remember correctly, when I looked at that initially, it seemed like it was going to be pretty difficult to make the driveway spacing requirements.
Mm-hmm.
They might be able to make it. However, from the quick look that I did when this first came through, I think it was going to be awfully tight.
Okay.
So the existing entrance there off of Conley would be used, if that's the case.
But now back to the retention pond. So strictly, and I'm sure parties are watching, but so strictly speaking, the retention pond issue, though it was required when the subdivision was created, is now the maintenance of that is on the property owners that own the retention pond, and it is a discussion between the owner of the field where the drainage is creating erosion and the property owners to resolve that issue.
Yes.
It is not a county issue.
It's not a county.
And I know we want to be careful not to create policy that causes problems like drainage issues or, poor planned splits and et cetera. But I think we need to not lose sight of the bigger picture here, that new construction is what pays our bills. The second sentence out of everybody's mouth when they say, I don't want that property split in little pieces, is, but I also want my taxes to stay lower. That's an oxymoron. So don't lose sight of the fact that new construction is what's paying our bills.
I agree with that, Jeff, but I don't agree with
I know what you're saying.
I'm saying, I completely understand what you're saying with the new construction in a new subdivision or a new development, but when you take a development that has been planned, the agreements have been made, understandings have been made, and then all of a sudden you say, oh, but now we can just go and split all of this in half.
I get exactly what you're saying, but what I'm saying is then you ask those people, it's okay that your taxes go up, right? Because that's the alternative to what you're saying.
You're only adding one extra house here.
Just in this instance, I'm saying,
Right,
what
but I'm
about
looking
in
at this subdivision. I don't think anybody
You
else
couldn't
can
do any
use
other
this.
ones in that area.
Right. So
Because
it's
the house
one
sits in the
extra
middle of the
house.
lots.
It's
So
one extra house.
That's
All
probably the only one in that subdivision that could be split twice, is what I noticed. I agree with what you're saying, Vicki. I wish people would just see the bigger picture, though. It's like, by saying that, it's okay that your taxes go up then, because that's the alternative.
Okay, any more?
I guess I would like to have a little more time to think about this and study it before we vote. If it's okay if we delay this a week.
Why not?
Well,
I think it's going to fail anyway.
I'll rescind my motion. You'll take back your second.
Yeah, or do you want to run it through and see what happens?
I don't want to kill it for a year.
I see.
I'd
Yeah.
like to visit with some of the.
Stevens, it's his area.
Yeah.
I visited with a lot of folks on this, but I'd like to visit with a few
I
more.
think that's the appropriate thing to do right now.
Okay.
We've had them
It's
both.
your area.
on.
I'll respect that.
Yep, that's fine with me.
So I move that we table it for a week.
Second.
Motion and second. Commissioner Cos?
Aye.
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 All right, it's been tabled for a week or
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, just to specify, that would be tabling this matter until February 10th at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
We need to set it to a certain date and time.
Okay.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Need to vote again?
Need to vote on that again, David, or is that good?
To a certain date and time.
Certain date and time? Okay.
So,
We got
aye.
a motion? Aye.
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 Okay. You know, is that enough time?
Say it again?
Crystal, is that enough time?
It's,
A week?
it's not tabled for staff, it's tabled for the commissioners.
You know, I
So that's
know,
enough
I
time
know,
for
but there's going to be some questions asked, I'm sure.
I guess it's up to Mike. Is that enough time
Okay.
that you think?
I
Mike?
I want to visit with some more people.
Okay, okay.
You want 1 week, though, or 2?
Give,
2 weeks.
we'll have to change the motion again.
Well,
We can stay and we can always come back again, Mike, if you want to.
Yeah, let's just leave
Okay, let's see where it goes from there. Okay, that's been, we'll be seeing that again. It passed. Okay, next one, I think is that Crystal too?
it is.
Crystal, your plug litter day.
Commissioners, I have before you a request to approve Resolution 2021-04. This is a request to rezone Lot 9A and Lot 9B of Deer Mountain subdivision from rural residential 5 to rural residential 2.5. This property is approximately 110 acres located near 254th and Stillwell Road. The idea behind this is obviously to build a subdivision in this area. The Planning Commission voted 9-0 to recommend approval of this case. Furthermore, it is again important to note that a protest petition was filed with the County Clerk's Office. The protest petition is valid, and according to the Kansas statute, whenever a valid protest petition is filed, the resolution adopting the rezoning shall not be passed except by at least a 3/4 vote of all members of the governing body. The applicant is here and will answer any questions that you may have, as will I.
Okay. Commissioners?
Now, this was going to be a private road or public road?
I don't know that yet. A roadway will be required.
Okay. So there's no plat, it's just a reason.
Correct, it's just a rezoning.
Okay. Then the plat will follow.
Correct.
Okay. And this is surrounding a platted subdivision already.
There is a platted subdivision to the north, yes.
Yeah,
And
I'm wrong.
this
That's
is
got to be a
actually,
plat with that many splits.
Yeah.
these
And this
two
is part
lots.
of that. That's
Yes.
part of it.
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't have any questions until you had the plat.
Yeah.
But it's going to require a road to be cut in.
Yeah. Beneficially. Other county commissioners?
Mike's area.
It's a, it's a rezone. It's not the plat. So when the plat comes, you'll address all the road issues and drainage and all those issues.
I think it's important to note that both 254th Street and Stillwell are gravel roadways. When I call them gravel roadways, I think that's being rather generous. I will tell you that staff's recommendation will be for off-site improvements of this. Of course, at the end of the day, the board has to uphold that recommendation. This is an area that, again, it meets the comprehensive plan to be rezoned to 2.5 acres. These two lots are part of this existing subdivision that was platted at 5 acres under the current zoning regulations. So, yes, those items will be covered during the platting process.
So that's where, and the rezoning, maybe those aren't where, some of the folks may think that that's where it needs to be addressed, but it really needs to be addressed when it comes to how many houses they want to build and all those things.
I think it's important that we all know, what we're looking at up front. However, yes, during the platting process is when those additional studies are required.
So, excuse me. So would off-site improvements be required if it was cutting a road in and doing 5 acres?
I think depending upon how much traffic was going to be generated, that yes, that may very well be something that is required until we have those studies and such. I don't want to make any sweeping promises, but yes, Stillwell and 254th Street are, like I said, they're gravel roadways, and Stillwell in particular is not in the greatest shape over there. So we get a lot of phone calls about it every year.
It's in the shape for the number of houses that are there.
Sure,
It's not in the shape that it could
for what it has
potentially.
currently, yes.
Well, but we've added. Well, 15 houses on it or something?
We don't know how many they're proposing to do.
No, I'm just talking about what's in
Oh.
the original.
All that's being considered currently is the rezone.
Right.
Okay. Well, I think with our comprehensive plan that has been adopted, I don't see really. Unless we found extraneous, like on this other one, we had drainage issues and those type of things, or at least some things that need to be questioned. I think this is pretty straightforward that it meets the zoning requirements in the comprehensive plan, and that's pretty much what your planning commission cited.
Yes.
So, the decision's been made basically by our decision that we made in the comprehensive plan.
But it's not a paved road. That's why I'm confused. 254 is not paved, right?
No, it is not.
So I thought our plan was 2.5 acres along paved roads.
This
Right.
is in the southern portion of the county where it was determined that everything
We had a lot of
south
islands,
Evans Road-
and we
Yeah, everything south of Evans was in the comp plan is identified as 2.5.
That's right.
I guess I'm thinking we needed to go ahead with the rezone.
that a motion? Then I'll second it.
I can.
You need to make a
I'll
motion
make
for
a
the
motion.
resolution.
Motion to approve Resolution 2021-4, rezone of Lot 9A and Lot 9B of the Deer Mound subdivision from RR5 to RR 2.5.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Commissioners, any more discussion on this one? All right, Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Cos?
No.
Okay, this is 4-1. Okay, Crystal.
One more. Commissioners, this is a request to approve Resolution 2021-5, which is a rezoning request to rezone a piece of ground that is partially zoned B3 and partially zoned as RR5 to specifically B3 zoning. The applicant is requesting a rezoning for a portion of the property located in the northeast corner of 207th in Springdale. Again, a portion of the property is currently zoned as B3, as are all of the 3 properties that are at that corner of 207th in Springdale are all zoned as B3. Staff was not able to determine when that rezoning took place. We went back and looked at the case files, and there was not a rezoning request in any of them, so it's likely that has been the case since at least 1962. The applicant is wanting to rezone this in order to put in an RV and boat storage facility, which is an allowed use in B3 zoning. The Planning Commission voted 7-2 to recommend denial of this case. According to the Kansas State statute, in order to overturn the Planning Commission's recommendation, the Board of County Commissioners must have a 2/3 majority vote in the affirmative. Again, a protest petition was filed. However, this protest petition was not valid. I will tell you that primarily the reason that the Planning Commission recommended denial is they did not want to see the entire parcel rezoned. They wanted to see just the area that the applicant was going to use for the RV and boat storage to be rezoned. The applicant sent over some materials late yesterday morning, showing some different configurations. However, our screen is not working today, so wasn't able to bring those up to you. The applicant is here and will answer any questions that you may have, including whether or not he would be willing to survey the property and rezone just a portion of the property.
Okay. Commissioners?
Well, that's the only thing I was wondering about is it's been since for 59 years probably zoned on the corner 1 acre, and then to rezone the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially if it's like an SUP where somebody's going to live there, build a house and live there. Probably doesn't need to be the whole parcel rezoned. So I'd be interested to see what the footprint of the actual business was going to be.
So should we table it for more information?
Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to make a motion that we table it to give them time to re-present a different layout.
Would that have to go back to, if they did propose a different layout, would that automatically have to go back to planning and zoning?
Go ahead, Dave.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, if I might, you could certainly take the action of tabling this. I would offer that if this is to be explored, that it be referred back to the Planning Commission. That would allow staff adequate time to work with the proposed or the developer with respect to the proposed use of the property, present that back to the Planning Commission, have a second public hearing on the matter, and then bring the matter back to you having been fully explored.
That makes sense. An opportunity to see some of these things are successful. We're not trying to stop growth. We just want to make sure everybody understands, and questions do come up. So I think that's a good thing. I know, Jeff, you want to?
That would be my motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more comments from that one? Mr. Stephen?
Table it to a certain date.
Steve, yeah, good point.
Or just send
It's
it
being
back.
directed back to the.
Let's go back to
Back.
Option
Okay.
of,
Yeah,
All right.
send it back.
come back. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No more, Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
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 Okay. Going back. Okay, item 8 is presentation discussion items.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal. Anybody?
Imagine we start with Commissioner Stevens. He was in Topeka yesterday, I believe.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
We testified on Senate Bill 23. Brian Havian testified as a resident, and Representative Tim Johnson testified, and I testified, and Commissioner Smith was going to join me, but he had a doctor's appointment. And it's looking pretty good, but that's what we thought last year.
Real good last year.
Mike, there might be some people that don't really understand what that. Would you just briefly give a little summary? On
During the tornado, what we found was homesteads under the Kansas current law, our county commissions are allowed to exempt homesteads from the property taxes if the home's been destroyed, or I believe it's over 50%. And we found that there was $26 million in damage in Leavenworth County of outbuildings, barns, and such, and that we as the commissioners could not address that. So this was drafted last session, and it was bipartisan piece of legislation, but and it made it through both the committee, the Tax Assessment and Taxation Committee in the Senate recommended it be approved, and the Taxation Committee over in the House recommended it be approved, and it was attached to other legislation, but then the pandemic hit. And of course, we know what happened at that point, so this issue's still out there, and we need to have it resolved, and I think, it sounds good, the legislators, but you know how it's, I don't really completely understand it, but it's quite a gauntlet up there to get something through. So
good.
We'll just
Probably usually don't get it the first year.
So we'll.
And there was a lot of people. There's a gentleman down in Linwood that I personally know. He'd lost 11 buildings and got one of them partially built back last year, and he got to pay taxes for all them buildings that year. It is terrible. It's a common sense bill.
It is.
It really is.
I was just kind of listening in because, like I said, I like to kind of go in and every once in a while. And I recommend anybody that has the time to listen to some of the hearings. So I listened to you yesterday.
Do you think we did okay?
I think you did really well. I just was interested. I don't think that I was caught off a little bit of guard of the pushback of.
I can explain the pushback. The pushback is that when we first presented the bill, it was just strictly outbuildings, rural outbuildings. And they added commercial property on, which we're okay with, like the $8 million in damage on the greenhouse. And the dairy, there was some commercial property that was destroyed as well. However, now the Kansas League of Municipalities wants to, they're wanting to add an amendment, which we do not want added, but the amendment would say that if your property was, if you were a city commission, and like in Greensburg, Kansas, and the whole city would be wiped out, that you could still charge, they want to have an amendment added so they could still charge the city portion of the property taxes on the people that did not have homes, which this is not about homes, first. The bill's not about homes. And second, that doesn't strike me as being very fair to the city commission. So we really don't want that issue added onto this or the whole thing. So it's really not, we're hoping that will not be added on.
Even coming from a city, that strikes me as not a good idea.
And I think it would be if more than 25% of your city was destroyed, then you could still charge property taxes. Because they're saying if you were devastated, you wouldn't have any revenue source.
Right.
But if your city was completely destroyed, the pushback to that is, if your city was that devastated, then the state and the federal government would surely, and like in Greensburg,
just like we got our FEMA check.
I just wanted to bring that up so that you could kind of add to that.
So that's the debate on that part of it.
I think the pushback too is they're concerned about the transparency and taxation bill that might get passed, and
that's a whole nother issue.
It is,
yeah.
but it's going to play into how much money you have, and I'm hoping that new construction is exempt, so because we would be asked to provide more services for the same amount of money.
Well, now, Mark, Mr. Lawfrey, you've been reading this bill. My understanding is this is going to require us to be mailing out a lot of pieces of literature at taxpayer expense.
Well, the current legislation as presented does not allow an exception for new construction. So what they're talking about is a revenue neutral position for cities and counties and other taxing entities, excluding school districts and excluding the state, of course. They don't have to follow the rules. But what it would require is if we are going to generate revenue in excess of what we generated the previous year, regardless of increased valuations or mill levy, we would have to send out notices to the property owners in Leavenworth County and anybody who would be impacted. So, and it could be a township that's doing it, or a fire district, or a city, or the county. And on that, you have to explain to them, the property owner, what their current taxes would be if it was a revenue neutral position, and what the taxes would be if we move forward with increasing revenue collected in the county. What they've contemplated, I'm not even sure we can comply with, and I know I'm about 99% confident we couldn't comply with it this year because it's going to require some significant reprogramming in software, and that's a statewide issue, not just a Leavenworth County issue. So it's the legislation is problematic. I understand what they're trying to accomplish. I'm not going to say whether I agree or disagree with that. I'm just saying that the application that they have contemplated is nearly impossible for us to comply with as it stands.
I just don't like the thought of us having to send out $30,000 mailings, maybe on multiple occasions. And I wish we could post it online, or if they changed the language.
Well, if they exempt new construction, then that would allow us to lower the mill levy and still maintain services. Because we may be asked to take over a lot of roads next year and subdivisions and that.
There's a potential that you could lower the mill levy and still have to send out this notification.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I know there is in our county, the way the appraisals, the evaluations are.
Yeah. Property sales in Leavenworth County are robust at this time.
Yes. City of Bayshore is the one that's causing a lot of that, I think. Right, Mayor?
I don't think
that's a good thing.
I think countywide.
Oh, I saw.
I wouldn't want to sneak in here.
Yeah, Vicky, I saw him sneak in back there. Mike, anything else?
No, that's all. The only one other thing, and I don't know. I visited with the county administrator about this. Is discussion at some point on our when we do a work session or something about franchise fees on utilities, and maybe how that could help to lower. Maybe we could redistribute some of these taxes and use that to lower our property taxes. But I don't know what the potential is, but just to get information on that.
Okay, Doug?
I attended the Bayshore City Council meeting last week and also Fairmount Township Board meeting last Thursday. And that was about it, I think.
Just a couple things I have, since I've only been on here for a month. I'm still trying to get my arms around about everything that Leavenworth County does. And one of the things that I've always been a proponent of is I had a council member, Mr. Ketchum, back in 1980, showing my age, once told me, he said, Mike, when I became the police chief, you got to toot your own horn once in a while. I have seen a lot of things go on in the county that's just not out there in the public. And I've asked with Mark if I could speak to our person that puts out these promotions. I just think if there's any way, and I'm not saying we're not doing a good job, if there's any way we can put out things on an email blast or put it on Facebook or something like that, there are so many positive things, especially after visiting with Bill in Public Works yesterday, that the county's doing that I just don't think people know. And I'm always been about, let's show them what we're out there, what they're out there doing, where their tax dollars are going to, the good and the bad. So that's the only thing I brought up when I was making my visits. I have a lot more visits to make, but I appreciate, Bill, you taking time, and Crystal did too, and of course, Mark and our county counselor visiting with me quite a few times. And with that, that's all I have. Jeff?
I met with Easton City Council and continuing to work with them on cleanup of the health hazard, some like the old grade school, issues. And then I've also continued to have interested persons reach out about the Cushing building. So the more we talk about that, more interest in renting space, which I think is a good idea. That's how we're going to make it affordable for the taxpayers for us to own that building. If we rent some space out, we won't have to pay utilities or
Absolutely.
maintenance or construction costs. So.
I think that on that, we need to do some another study work session to kind of really decide where we want to go with that, though. What is the interest on the other organizations that are the nonprofits that have interest, and then the for-profit,
Well,
where do we fit that? How does it fit?
It'd be nice to have tenants that we didn't have to remodel for.
Yeah.
To spend a lot of money.
Yeah, and some of them we've been talking to would pay
Make
for
it
the
fit
remodel.
for the-
Yeah, I'm just saying that I think that we need to kind of begin to focus in and decide and start making the decisions.
And I found out through the appraiser's office if they're medically based companies or renters, we don't lose the exemption status for tax.
Mark, you're
purposes.
gathering that information, aren't you, though? You have
Yes.
the people that are coming
Yeah,
in.
I mean,
Yeah,
but I just-
I've reached out to the entities that we provide normal funding for to gauge their interest, just to see if they're even interested in relocating.
Okay.
And then we're still working internally with the departments on space needs and trying to, again, before we commit a lot of space there to other entities, make sure that we've addressed our internal ones.
And with that being said, I think what Commissioner Cos that's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, Vicki, is that that's going to be coming back for us to take a serious look at a work
Yeah,
session.
it will in the future. Again, just we're not at that point yet
Okay.
where we have the internal needs addressed.
Okay. Jeff, do you have anything else?
That's it.
Vicki?
Well, let's see, listened in on a portion of, not all of the workforce partnership meeting. I couldn't get logged on to the CEO meeting for whatever reason. I just couldn't get into it. I participated in the NAACP annual meeting on Saturday, and listened in on the City Commission meeting last night, and the St. Patrick's Day parade is a go. So they are going to.
I was glad to see that.
That was, and they had several other things. They're finishing up their comprehensive plan and submitting that to the City Commission for approval after they go through the plan. Same thing we went through, but they're
Right.
getting there, and I think that's about it.
Mike?
Yeah.
I just wanted to note a constituent of mine, obituary, passed away. I just wanted to read a little information about Harold Leach. Harold Leach was age 79 of Linwood. He passed away Thursday, January 28, 2021, after a lengthy illness. And Harold was born June 6, 1941 in Holton, Kansas, and was the one of 5 sons born to Orville and Verna Stockwell Leach. Harold moved to Linwood in 1951 and graduated from Linwood High School in the class of 1959. Harold married the love of his life, Alberta Rose, on December 1961. They made their life together in Leavenworth County. Harold working at the Lone Star Cement Plant and later as the warehouse manager at Richardson Foods, both in Bonner Springs. Harold started a lawn equipment business in his garage. Harold has since 19 since April 5th, 1988, when his son Randy went missing. Harold has devoted his life to leading the search in hopes of finding Randy. And I just want to note that this was a constituent in my district and very well-known case and family, and our heart goes out to them, and we hope that someday, maybe still when Alberta's alive, that they will find some closure to this case, and our heart goes out to them.
Thank you, Mike. All righty, additional public comments. I have Doug from Scottwood. Doug, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Yes, sir. Come on up here. You have 3 minutes to plead your case. Good morning to you.
Morning. We're from Scottwood Industries. This is Beth Ross, and I'm Doug Pratt. I recently took over for the other salesman, Phil Collins, and one of my goals is to try and get in front of you guys and see if there's anything that we could do. So we've been working with Leavenworth County, as you all probably are aware, for over 25 years, and during that time we've had a very good relationship, as I feel, working back and forth, hand in hand on a lot of good things. Recently there's been a policy change on the way that you all handle the grading and preparation of the gravel roads for residential dust control. And over time, I understand that budgets change, and so do the way that we do things. So I'm here today, hopefully, to come up with a good solution that's good for the county and good for the residents that have been doing this. There's a lot of residents that have been buying the dust control in front of their residences for a very long time, and the success rate of the dust control is based in a lot of ways heavily on the road being graded beforehand. So we're just here basically seeing if there's anything that could be done to at least maybe work at a better schedule, if there's anything that we can do differently that would help ease the burden of some of the cost to the county to prep for some of these residents.
Okay, Mark?
Typically, we don't engage on public comment. It wasn't an agenda item, so
Okay.
the board,
Okay.
it's the board's discretion.
We, like I said, we don't, but I hear what you're saying, and we'll be talking. We'll have a discussion on this later.
We have a couple ideas, so if somebody wants to reach out at some point in
That'd
time.
be Bill.
Yeah, just get with Mr. Knoll
Our Public Works Director.
and
We've
Mr.
been-
Greer, Road and Bridge Superintendent Vince.
Okay.
We'll see what
Thanks for your concern.
Yeah, we'll see
No
what
problem at all.
we'll see what we can
want to
do.
be a solution and not
Sure.
a problem.
Absolutely. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.
Beth, did you used to be dispatched too?
No.
Okay.
I've been with Scotland for 14 years.
I know, I've talked to
I'm
you
sure you know my
before.
name.
Yeah.
But it's nice to put a face with the name.
Right, yeah, I talked to you over the phone.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, I guess.
Yes, sir.
So
Is
moved.
that the last public comment?
Last public comment, I believe.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. Mr. Stephen?
Aye.
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 Aye.